Anything?
No. Yes, it's loading now. Okay, now I see. You're dancing.
Hey everybody, it is Ron, founder of Code Newbie. I'm so excited to talk to you, although you're not going to talk back, so that's kind of weird, but that's okay. Today we're doing I think this is at least my first official Code Newbie live stream, so we'll see how this goes. The point of this live stream is to tell you a little bit about Codeland. So I'm going to start with my official welcome overlay, which looks like this. Bam! Codeland CFP feedback live. Okay, now I will remove that. Okay, so the point of doing this is that I got a lot of texts, emails, phone calls, DMs from people saying, I think I have this idea. I don't really know if it's a good fit. It's not fully developed yet, but I think there's something here. What do you think? So I thought, there's probably a lot more people who didn't know that they could email or DM me. So I thought, okay, let's open it up to everybody. Let's have people submit their topics and ideas. And I'm going to do my best to give you some really honest and very gentle, very kind feedback on that to get you prepped and ready to submit your actual CFP, which you better do. Okay, so there are two ways you can interact with me. The first, ready for this next graphic? Ready? Bam! The first is you can comment on YouTube. So there should be like a little live chat window thingy that you can comment on and ask questions. And the second is you can use Twitter if that is more comfortable for you. Just tweet with the hashtag Codeland. And I have my awesome assistant producer, Crystal, on the lookout. And keep an eye on those. And she's going to forward me questions that I'm going to share with you all. So that's what you can do. If you want some more information on Codeland, it is happening May 4 and 5. You can find out details on all that at codelandconf.com. And a friendly reminder that the CFP closes November 26th. So you have like exactly 10 days to come up with an idea, look over the CFP. It's a little bit longer and has more questions than most CFPs do. It's very intentional. And so make sure to go to codelandconf.com and there should be a CFP section there for you to submit. Okay, so now let's get to the actual ideas. Okay, so I'm going to start with... Okay, so we open it up to submissions, and I have a nice long list of topics. I'm going to try to go through as many of them as I can. Okay, so the first idea that I'm going to go through reads, and I won't name like names or anything, I'm just going to say the idea, reads, I want to talk about building confidence as a developer because imposter syndrome is common among developers, especially newbies. I recently just accepted the fact to start introducing myself as a developer. Okay, so this is, I like this topic because I know that a lot of people probably have similar ideas of wanting to do a talk on confidence and imposter syndrome and that kind of thing. So honest, unfiltered feedback, because I can't edit this. Number one is the imposter syndrome conversation makes me a little bit uncomfortable for a few reasons. Number one, because I don't think we really use that term correctly. Imposter syndrome is not really meant to describe newbies. It's meant to describe people who are actual experts who've been doing something for many, many years with lots of experience, and they are unable to internalize a lot of the objective success that they have because they feel like an imposter. So to call yourself an imposter as a newbie isn't quite accurate. So that's kind of my initial reaction to that. And we had a really, really great episode on imposter syndrome and kind of the way we misuse it with Alicia Liu, I believe, about like a year ago. It's really good. You should totally listen to that in the Code Newbie podcast. So that's my initial reaction. However, I think that the issue of building confidence is a huge, huge issue. I deal with it all the time. I see it all the time in our community. So for this idea, I think that the building confidence conversation, what's really lacking in it is people don't tell you tactical approaches on how to develop confidence. I don't think you can wake up and go, I'm going to be confident today. That's not a thing. So I think that this talk could be interesting if it, one, had a really interesting, compelling story of maybe a moment in time. Maybe you were at a conference, you were at work, you were applying for a job where you didn't feel very confident, and a story on how you develop that confidence. What things did you do? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? This is a talk that I would love to see some like actual research on. I think it's really easy to say, well, I put on nice lipstick today and I feel very confident. Therefore, we should all put on lipstick. That's not helpful. So I'd love to see some more research things on this that shows, what are scientifically proven confidence builders? What are some techniques that very smart scientists have figured out that might help people? So that's kind of what I'd like to see in this type of talk. And so research, an actual story, a moment that tells me for you personally, when did you not feel confidence? How did you gain it? And then 3, making sure that you leave people with actionable items. What can I do? What can I take away from this talk that allows me to build my confidence and solve my problem? Hopefully that helps. Okay, next topic. I want to talk about my journey to learn UI design and front-end development on my own, and discuss how creating personal projects will add more value to your thought process when showing off your work to employers or even potential clients. It's important for me to talk about this because I want to provide some insight to others who are thinking about taking the self-taught approach to successfully transition into the UI, UX, or front-end development field. Okay, initial reactions. Number 1, I really like that it's UI design and front-end development. I think that, and this is a reflection of kind of my own skill set and my network bias, I think I tend to have a lot of web development, frankly, a lot of like Ruby on Rails speakers and topics and that kind of thing. That's just what I gravitate towards. So anything that helps correct for that bias and kind of pulls me back from that is really awesome. So the fact that it's UI design or front-end development is on its own a good thing. I think that the self-taught journey is really, really fascinating. It's one of those things that is incredibly different for every person given your scenario and your goals, what you're optimizing for, all that kind of stuff. So I think this could be interesting. I think there's 2 things. 1, I like to avoid talks that tend to be very listicle-y. So if this was, 5 ways to create your personal project, I can read that, right? Like, why does that need to be a talk? So I think one question I would ask is, what about this is particularly interesting, is important, and is really, really good for the talk format, is number 1. Number 2, discuss how creating personal projects will add more value to your thought process. I love this idea, and I think this is where examples are really, really, really helpful. Some of the talks to me are they're such a tease when it's, here's some really great lofty goals, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. So this is the kind of thing that if you were to say, here's one example of how I used a personal project and added value. Here's another example where I did that. Here's another example where I did that. I think that being able to show examples for this type of talk is really, really, really valuable. So think about that and include that in hopefully your CFP. Okay, so next idea. Getting involved in the community as soon as you start school to be a more well-rounded developer and better your odds of landing a job right out of school, if not before. Okay, so a couple things on this. Networking is a huge, I don't want to say problem, is a huge pain point for a lot of people. It is super awkward. Like, networking is incredibly awkward, and it's not always fun, and it's really weird to enter a space with a lot of people, especially if everyone looks like they know each other, then you have to interject somehow and look like really cool about it. So I appreciate the pain point attached to this topic. A couple things. 1, we want to be as inclusive as possible. So not assuming that everyone in the audience is like about to start school is one thing. So just be aware of some of the biases and assumptions that we're making about our audience. The second thing is, this is an example where tactful or tactical information is really helpful. So how do you actually do that, right? It's not just, you should go network by going to meetups, which is kind of helpful, but like also kind of not really helpful. It's more of, how do you start the first conversation? What is the very first thing that you would actually say to someone? If someone looks like they don't give a crap about what you say, how do you deal with that? If someone says something really mean to you, whether it's, belittling you because you're new, or they're racist or sexist, or just say some other thing that makes you go like, I don't want to be here anymore. How do you get out? How do you respond? So this could be a really powerful talk if there were actionable items, real examples. And I think this actually would be really fun if you did something like a skit with it. Like if you did, if you had, called someone up to from the audience on stage and say, okay, I'm gonna be the neckbeard developer who thinks that everyone should just use Emacs, right? And then you did like a little role playing thing. That could be really, really fun for that format. It also leverages the fact that Talks at the end of the day, they're not lectures, they're not soapboxes, they're performances. You're performing. So that really takes advantage of the fact that you have a stage and lights and a mic and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that this would be really interesting because it's a good pain point. I think it needs to be very actionable, very, very specific on what steps you can take. And I think there's a really cool audience participation thing that you can do that would make this a unique talk and a very memorable talk. Okay, next one. Integrating. I gotta take a break. Whew, and I talk fast too. Okay, so. Next idea, integrating software with hardware because it's a great way to integrate multiple skills into a tangible item. I've created a smart mirror, Alexa skills, and sending departure data from my refrigerator to the cloud. Okay, that is amazing. I want to give a talk about this and want to learn what is needed to do a workshop on IoT. Okay, so that's just really cool. I don't know any of these things or how to do anything that you described. So that's just really, really interesting. When we had the first Codeland 2017, the very first talk we did was Stephanie Nemeth. She did this really awesome art and code. I believe it was Raspberry Pi. And she gave this awesome demo of how she, and actually she wore like a dress and had like an Internet of Things dress that lit up and people sent her colors. It was amazing. It was beautiful. Got so much great feedback on that. So I would love to have another hardware type thing in this. I think that could be really cool. So this is an example where I really want to know the details. I want to know, how did you build it? This is the kind of project that feels very difficult and very like, oh my God, I mean, maybe they could do it, but like I could never do that. So anything that you can do to help me see that, hey, maybe I can do it too, is super impactful, super powerful. So tell me your ups, but also tell me your downs. Tell me the parts that sucked. Tell me what got you really, really stuck. Tell me, what you wish you'd done differently. I think this is a really just an interesting topic in general, just making your refrigerator do things, but also taking me through that code newbie journey and hopefully getting me inspired about maybe projects that I can do with my refrigerator. So yeah, I really like that, and I definitely hope that you submit a talk for that. Next one, how knitting, sewing relates to code because they're often seen as less mathematical crafts. And I want to show computer-generated knitting patterns. I want you to show computer-generated knitting patterns, okay? Because that's awesome. There was this tweet that I think went viral, had like a bazillion, that's a real number, bazillion retweets, where it was this woman, and I don't think she was a developer specifically, but she was in STEM or engineering. She was like getting her PhD. Something smart sounding. Anyways, she started with this dress and then she did something and like spun around and then it became a new dress. I didn't really understand how it worked. Anyways, it was really awesome. And her tweet was basically saying that like she was able to build something like that and make something like that because of math. And if we made the connection between math and sewing and math and costume design and that kind of thing, it would get even more people interested in coding. So I love that idea. And actually, when I saw that tweet, I was thinking, man, I really hope someone submits something about knitting and sewing. So yes, totally on board with this. Similar feedback as the refrigerator one. I want to actually like see a computer generated knitting pattern, but I also want to understand it. One of the things that just breaks my little heart about watching other people's talks is they get you so excited with the demo. It's like, oh my God, that's so cool. How did you do it? And then they never really show you how you did it. So you leave thinking, wow, they're smart, but I can't do that. I wouldn't be able to figure that out. So this is one of those examples where I would love for you to actually show the code that you use and make the connection between, hey, this little part here, that's what got us this star shape in our knitting pattern. I don't know how knitting patterns work. But having those connections would be really, really interesting, inspiring, but also very actionable. So love it. Absolutely love the idea. Definitely want to see the code. Definitely want to see how the two are connected in a way that is very newbie friendly. And by the way, those are the kinds of details that I will personally work with you on. I work with every single speaker. I spend an average of 4 hours doing your slides, rehearsing your talks, fleshing things out. So all the things that I'm mentioning, if some of it you're not quite sure how to, solve it, as long as you have the meat of the idea, I'll help walk you through the details. Okay, next idea. No, we need a water break. Okay, hold on. Okay. Next idea. I want to talk about encouraging others to give talks because I think our community benefits enormously from diversity of perspective. Do you think a meta talk like this fits what Codeland is aiming for? That is interesting. So I do agree with your premise. I agree that we want more people to give talks and more people, I take that back. It's not that we want to get more people to give talks. I think it's that we want more people to see themselves as speakers, to even see themselves as being, worthy of having something to talk about. Because a lot of times I'll talk to people and they'll mention something offhand. I'm like, that's a really good talk. Are you going to submit that anywhere? Because I might submit that somewhere because that's a really good idea. So getting people to see that they actually do have a lot of valuable stories and takeaways and that kind of thing. Okay. Having said that, I think this would make for a better workshop. I was actually hoping to have one. I think it may have been one of the categories. Like a meta talk on how to do a CFP, how to give a really great talk. Because I think that speaking is one of those things that you can't really learn how to speak from reading a blog post or hearing a talk on how to speak. I think you have to say it. You have to do it. You have to see what it feels like to have, hundreds of people staring at you blankly waiting for you to blow their minds. Like you have to experience a lot of those things. And it's not until you're in those situations that a lot of those lessons click. So I think that this idea would be more impactful in a workshop format where you can have, I think the biggest workshop will probably be like 20 people, where you can have anywhere from 8 to 20 people in a room. You can, put together a little template for an example talk, and you can really walk through how you might present it and give feedback and make it really interactive. And I think it's also like a small enough space that it feels very safe and people can get a lot of value from it. So I like the idea of talking about how to talk and how to speak, but I think that's better for a workshop. And again, same rules. What are actual approaches? What are actionable items for that talk? How do I practice? What are tips? What are takeaways? And showing examples. I think it's really easy to say, exude confidence from the stage. What the hell does that look like? How does an audience member look at that and say, oh, that is confidence? So I think that's one where there's a lot of high level, generally helpful information, but I would like to see more tactful information on that. Okay, so next I have. Oh, this one is a three idea one. Okay. I'm just going to go through these one by one. So idea one, I want to talk about working remotely as a new developer because people are often discouraged from applying for a remote position. As a first-time developer, I'd like to share the pros and pitfalls I have learned. Okay, I like this topic of working remotely very, very much. The tough part about this idea is how do you make it better as a talk than it would be a blog post? And I'm going to share some inside knowledge with you because you decided to spend some time with me, which is that the rubric, so we have a programming committee of about, I think this year it's going to be 12 people. And in that programming committee, I give them a rubric and I say, here are the 5 questions you should ask yourselves when grading. And there's a grading system. It's 1 to 5. And so when grading these talks, I want you to think about these 5 things. So one of the questions I ask is this a blog post or is it a talk? A blog post is information that is mostly like factual, maybe has more takeaways, more listicles, more here are 5 ways to blah, 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 and doesn't necessarily require a person, right? Like you can deliver most of the value just by reading it. Whereas a talk, if you think about what a talk is, it's a human being in front of you. You can see all of their facial expressions. You can see, their confidence, their nerves. There's a person there. There's a real powerful opportunity to create an emotional connection with a human being. So given that, stories are much, 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 much more exciting to watch in person than to read about. Whereas here are, for working remotely resources, I don't really need you to stand there and tell me that, right? Like I can read that and maybe even get more value just from quickly scanning an article than having you stand up and present that to me. So with that, I would think about what can I share, what can I talk about as far as my experience working remotely that takes advantage of the fact that you're presenting to an audience. So when I hear like pros and pitfalls, I'm thinking, is that just going to be like a pros and cons list? Because again, that's great for a blog post. That's not very interesting to watch as a talk. However, this is a really great, an interesting kind of storyline to this could be, I struggled really, really hard to find a remote developer position. Here are the things that I tried. Here's why it sucked. I felt really crappy about it, but I was able to turn all that around by doing these things. Here's where I am now. Here's how you can possibly get there too. So I think there's ways to make it interesting, but we have to combine and really pull on that personal journey, that story, and really make it exciting to watch. Okay. Number 2. Oh, nope. Water break. I'm getting much thirstier faster than I expected. Okay, give me 1 second. That's delicious. Okay. Number 2, I want to talk about fearing JavaScript and coding anyway. Ooh, I really like that title because many learners become overwhelmed or defeated by JavaScript. I would like to share how I learned to be okay with not understanding JavaScript, found what worked for me, and was employed without knowing JavaScript. Okay, I feel like that also is really funny because it's like, we don't need to know it, and I got a job anyway, so that's funny. Okay, I love the title, Fearing JavaScript and Coding Anyway. I'm a little worried that the takeaway from the talk will be just skip the things we're afraid of and don't do them. So that messaging doesn't quite really fit with our theme of like, be afraid, but do it and move forward and progress. Like it doesn't really fit that theme. So that's one concern I have. The idea of fearing JavaScript is definitely incredibly relatable. It is overwhelming, and I constantly feel defeated by JavaScript. I would need a little bit more information to see how this would work as a talk. So when we talk about being overwhelmed or defeated, what does that look like? Does that look like reading the same tutorial 20 times and nothing sinking in, and then you're like, screw it, I'm gonna move on to Ruby? Ruby. Or does it mean, doing a bunch of different resources and nothing really clicking? Does it mean thinking you understand it and then going to build something with vanilla JavaScript and then realizing, oh crap, I don't actually remember anything I said? So I'd want a little bit more color on what does it mean to be overwhelmed or defeated. I initially thought, and I would like to see this talk positioned as, even though I might feel not very smart and not very good at this, here are ways that I overcame it and got good at this. I think that would be a more inspirational talk, and I think that's probably the scenario most people are going to be in. I think a lot of people, if they invest in a language, they would probably need to see it through, at least to some extent. So I would prefer, not to totally change your idea, but I would prefer to see this positioned as, it sucks, it's crap, you're gonna feel like crap, but here's what I did to work through the crap, and here is how you can work through the crap too. Work through the crap, new talk idea. Okay, third one, workshop or talk. I want to talk about enjoying CSS by making pure CSS images, because a lot of developers dread or look down on CSS. Oh man, I suddenly got really hungry. Okay, I want to inspire and encourage people to explore all the cool things you can do with CSS and have fun doing it. Okay, initial reactions. I like the pure CSS images part because, especially we talked about what works well as a talk versus a blog post. I think that can make for really awesome slides. I can imagine. So here's the truth. Most talks don't really need slides. Most talks you can give and get 90% of the value just from listening to the talk. And I think that's what actually makes it a good talk. I don't think, unless you're doing a very code sample heavy thing where you have to walk through lines of code, I don't think most talks should rely on their slides to make their point. But this could really take advantage of the fact that we have this really, really nice big projector. So I'm really excited about that. I think to make it into a talk, it needs to be more, again, not a listicle. So more than, here are 5 cool CSS images, 1, 2, 3, 4. I would like to see this as maybe I'm trying to think. There's a couple angles. One could be, here is an image that you never thought you could make in CSS, but watch me do it. And it could be a story in that you build it up. I actually did and I'm just remembering, I did a similar talk to this with like vanilla CSS images at a Codeland meetup in DC like last year. But it could be something like, let's start with this box, right? It's a div, it's got a green background, that's all it's got. And let's build the Mona Lisa. I don't know what the thing is, but let's build, this really complex, amazing painting thing with, starting from here. That, I really like that idea. Okay, you should totally do that. That's a really good idea. Because then, and it's also, I'm getting excited now. It's also kind of symbolic in a way, because I think we all start as very simple green box divs, and we would like to become Mona Lisa paintings or something like that. So I think that there's a really nice kind of personal story in there where, like, how do you start with something really, really simple, and how do you very slowly, one, attribute at a time, build to something that is actually really beautiful and really impressive. So I really hope you give that talk. That would be awesome. Okay, I'm skipping a couple of these because they're similar to ones that I've already discussed. So I think like a couple more around like networking and branding, and I've already addressed that. So I'm going to move on to some newer ideas. Okay, this one's a little bit long. You ready? Okay. My experience learning how to make a website accessible, because there is lots of information out there and lots of tools to check what standards your site meets, but it is hard as a first timer to know what is important to do and what HTML attributes and other similar things that make websites accessible are still relevant. Okay, cool. I just did my first project at work that needed the website to meet US government web accessibility compliance standards and struggled with knowing what was important to include and what wasn't. I didn't have infinite time to work on it. Infinite time would be awesome. The workshop would cover resources, blog articles, official documentation, and that I use to make the markup accessible, and tools, Chrome extensions that I use to check my work. I would have participants actually write HTML and pick colors for a page and see how screen readers react to different markup and colors to account for color blindness. I'm looking for feedback on if I have enough knowledge and experience to give this workshop and how to structure the workshop. Thank you. This conference sounds incredible. I'm excited to see what you say. Cool. I'm excited to tell you. So we had a workshop very similar to this at the first Codeland, and I think it was just called Intro to Accessibility. It was with Stephanie Slattery, who we also had on the podcast, season 1, episode 1. She's amazing. I absolutely love her. And that was one of the most popular workshops that we had. Like, everybody really wanted to learn about accessibility, which says a lot about our community. Like, our community really gives a damn. So I think this works really well, and I like know that it works because we've done it before, and I think we should totally do one again. I was actually hoping to have another accessibility workshop. So definitely submit that idea. The way that we structured the workshop the first time is I'm trying to remember, we started with a very short intro to accessibility. Here is what it is. Here's what it looks like. Here are some terms like the WCAG that you should probably know about. So kind of like an intro to the topic in general. And then we moved into, okay, here is what, that's where it was. It was focused on the audit specifically. So here's what an accessibility audit looks like. So if you go to a web page and you want to know how much does this suck in terms of accessibility, here's the way that we can do that. Now that we've all talked about that and presented that, you go off into small groups and do your own audits. So Stephanie picked, I think it was like 10 websites that people could pick from. They paired off and looked at and spent the rest of the workshop looking at that website, doing their own audit and kind of making suggestions on what they can do to improve and what they might do differently. So you're totally welcome to steal that format. That's a really great format. It worked out really, really well. So doing something on, here's a website that sucks. Here's what I'm going to tell you that we can do to make it better. And let's go through the exercise of figuring out how to make it better together, and let's discuss. That worked the first time, really excited about it. And I think it would work really, really well for you. If you also wanted to give a talk, I think this would also make a really great talk on how I turned the government standard requirement compliant thing into how I made it compliant. I think that could be really interesting. We had a similar talk to that also with Sterling Walker. I absolutely loved that talk. She's such a good speaker as well. Love that talk. You should totally check it out on the Code Newbie YouTube page. And so there, her job was taking this website, the company she worked at, and making it accessible to 2 blind users. So she just took us through, like literally just told that story. It was, here's blind user number 1. Here's how she used the website. So this is what we had to do to fix it. Here's blind user number 2. Here's how he used the website. And it was very, very different because not all blind people are the same. And it kind of walked through the different approaches and strategies that she had to implement, also as like a first-time developer working at her first job and this being her first project. So it was kind of like all different layers of scariness in that. It was really personal. It was really actionable, right? Like she showed specific things that she did that I can now think, oh, cool, maybe I'll incorporate that in my future thing. But she also told the ups and downs of her and her personal story as a developer on that journey to making things accessible. So yeah, I can see a very similar structure working out here where it's, here's this website, didn't have a lot of time, didn't have a ton of experience, had to figure it out on the fly, and it not only needs to be accessible, but it needs to reach U.S. government web accessibility compliance standards, which is a whole other level of compliance. And this is how we got it done. So I think that would be a really great talk as well. Okie dokie. Okay, next one. I want to talk about the challenges of teaching yourself to code from a Caribbean island and how I overcame it, because I want to help those that are struggling to get into coding because of difficult and isolating circumstances. Ooh, that is very interesting. So any opportunity that we have to incorporate like international just unique perspectives in general, but specifically international perspectives, is very exciting. So I'm very intrigued by this premise. What I am wondering is there something specific about being from a Caribbean island, or is it kind of like not being in San Francisco and New York City? So what I'm wondering is it about being in an environment of general isolation where maybe there isn't as much, as many meetups or as many conferences, or is there something specifically about being from the Caribbean? So that's one question I have. Either one is fine, but that's one thing I'm wondering is like, is it what's the abstract version of this? The other question I'm asking is, are the challenges to that unique? Let me ask you this. If the circumstances changed, how less challenging would the challenges be, and how would teaching yourself be different, right? So I'd want to see, this is what it's like for me in my specific situation. This is, even if you're not in the specific situation, here is how you might relate to those problems and those issues. And then here is what you can do to compensate for, make up for, or just do the best that you can if you're in this situation. So I think you need all 3 of those components to make this work. So one, being very clear, this is what sucks, this is why it sucks, and kind of making that emotional connection with the audience, and getting them, and that's kind of like step 1 of any of these talks is getting the audience to care, right? So number 1, tell me something that is unique about your situation that makes me go, oh man, that does suck, or oh wow, I've learned a lot from you, and I'm interested, and I hope that you solve your problem. So making that connection. 2, connecting that back to a broader audience. So how can people who are not in the Caribbean relate to this? And then 3, telling me specifically what are things that you can do. And again, things like you should go on Twitter it's too generic of advice to really be interesting. Everyone says that. It shouldn't be, you should cold email people you're interested in. That's correct. That is true. That's good advice, but it's not interesting. It's too generic. And it also doesn't help people actually take that step, because I'm very, very comfortable cold emailing. I used to be a journalist. I cold email everybody all the time. I'm used to being constantly ignored. But if you're not used to that, if you're not used to cold DMing, cold reaching out to people, show me specifically, how do I start? How can I actually go about doing that? So that piece is really important. But I think depending on the answers to the depending on like what exactly the challenges are, that has good potential. Okay, water break. Am I doing good? Am I good? Okay, that's my husband. He's in the background. He's been like popping in to make sure I don't make anything stupid. Okay. Ooh, I think I'm gonna like this next one. So this next one reads, oh god, I got a burp. Hold on. Okay. Next one. I want to talk about an engineer's code of ethics. Oh my god, you had me at ethics. Because it's an important topic that needs to be shared now more than ever. True. We need to be careful about what we release. Yes, we do. To our users and have some basic principles and ethics when it comes to software development. I'm trying not to clap because like the mic it's very loud, but okay. Yes, absolutely love this. This is, yes, I would love to have an ethics talk at the conference for sure. I think this is one of those things where it can, we don't want it to come off too preachy, right? We don't want to make the audience feel like bad about themselves or, well, I guess if you have bad ethics, maybe we do want you to feel bad about yourself. But we don't want it to be like a 15-minute guilt trip. We don't want it to be like, this is how you suck and you don't care about the world, you know? So this conversation has this topic, the topic of ethics definitely has potential. It's all in the execution. So let me share a couple ways that I think this could work out. Really, this neckline is like totally, ugh. Okay. I'm gonna share a couple ways that I think this could work. Number one is showing me a specific example, ideally an example that you've experienced of something that you did that maybe was a little shady, like ethically shady, and how you made up for it, or, well, not made up for it, but how you fixed it, or how you made sure it never happened again. And I think that's really powerful because when you stand and say, this is how I messed up and I did something wrong, it's so powerful. It's insane how powerful it is because you're showing vulnerability, which strangely is a sign of strength. You are opening yourself up to making a very powerful connection, emotional connection with your audience, and they're really going to care about you and what you have to say. So definitely if you were to frame this as, here's what I did that I'm not really proud of, here's why it was a problem, here are the specific steps, here's the journey that I went, I do this a lot, I'm realizing. Here's the journey that I went through to get to a place that is better, you know, more, can you be more ethical? Okay. More ethical, and make sure that I never make this mistake again. That would be very, very powerful. And then the benefit of that is you can talk about all like the crappy things and unethical things developers do without pointing the finger at the audience and being like, this is probably you with your unethical self, you know? So I think if you make that as an opportunity to shine the light on you and something you've done, that removes that kind of shaming that unfortunately tends to come off on talks that are about like ethics and stuff. So I don't know if you've done anything unethical, but if you did, we could talk about it. Okay, next idea. Number one, talk about the, you know, I've been talking for like 40 minutes straight. Isn't that ridiculous? It's ridiculous. I don't know how news anchors do this. Okay, talk about the challenges you face when moving from learning to code to coding for real in your first developer job. What are common hurdles and how to get over them? Because I think a lot of people would relate to this and a lot of code newbies won't have anticipated some of these challenges and would appreciate a heads up. Okay, so here's two thoughts. Thought number one, I can see this very easily being the listicle format that we want to avoid. So if it's like 5 surprises on the job is not like, do I need you to tell me that? Like, can I just read it? Can I just scan it real quick and maybe see a couple tweets about it? Do I need to spend 15 minutes sitting in an audience and watching you say that? I don't know. But the second idea that I had is this could be a really fun, way to highlight, here is what they tell you about the job and here's the reality of it. And I think this could be a very funny talk. I don't know if you're funny. If you're not, it's okay. I'm hilarious and I can help you be funny. So this could be a really interesting talk where it's like, okay. Oh. another idea. Okay. So one way you could do this is you could literally take me through a first day on the developer job, right? First day on the job. And you can walk me through, you go pick up your coffee at the local bodega if you're in New York City. And then you sit at your chair, kind of like walking me through like a day, like a typical first day. And then, so we have like built into it, we have that journey, we have that story, we have that narrative. And then on top of that, you can pause at different parts of the day and do a juxtaposition between here's what they tell you and then here's what it's really like, right? You think your first, code review is going to be really gentle and nice. Here's how they rip you apart and what you can do to deal with it. So I think there's kind of ways to build in humor by saying like, here's like the fluffy version, here's the reality of it, but also keeping it in a story, but also at each point, so let's say there's like 5 stages of the day that you walk us through, at each point saying, here's what sucks about it, but here's what you can do differently, here's how you can make up for it, here's how I tackled it. So I think this has the potential to be just very interesting structurally, but also very informative and just entertaining. And that first day doesn't have to be your literal first day. It can be like, a typical first day that I'm making up for the sake of making these other points. So I think that could be really cool. Okay, next one. Idea number 2. I need to stop clapping. I want to talk about my experiences as a developer who doesn't code as a hobby. I enjoy it as a job, but I'm not tinkering away with things 24/7 because I think a lot of people think because they don't fit the stereotype of someone who codes all the time that they're not going to be a successful developer, and that's not true. I totally agree with that. So I'm an absolute and very proud workaholic. I work all the freaking time, all day, forever. And that's the life I choose, and it makes me happy and fulfilled, and I love it. And if you're not like that, that is totally cool. You're allowed to take a break and just like, have weekends and stuff. That's totally fine. So I like this. I like the idea of giving a talk that's like, hey, we spend a lot of time talking about side projects and contributing to open source and hackathons and all that stuff. But also if you don't want to do those things, it's okay. I would need more information to figure out if this, again, is a good talk or a good blog post. This feels like a really great, tweet thread, honestly. It feels like a really good, I can see you being like, I don't need to do these side projects, and that would be really impactful. As a talk, I would want to know, what are your experiences as a developer who doesn't code as a hobby? Have you found that to be difficult? Is that a luxury that you can afford when you're maybe a little bit more established? Is the unfortunate reality of the way our industry operates that if you're a newbie and you don't code all the time, are you significantly hurting your chances? But as soon as you get that first job, then it's cool. You don't have to do all that stuff anymore. So I'd be interested to hear, literally, what have your experiences been? Has it been hard? Has it caused any, socially awkward issues? Do people judge you for it? And how do you make up for it? I would also in this talk like to see, okay, if you don't code as a hobby, if you don't do hackathons, you don't do all those things, but your job search depends on you having some type of portfolio, how do you make up for that? Do you maybe blog more on the job? Are you just really, really good at speaking to your work, like what you did at the job itself, on the job itself, so that you don't really need those hobbies? How do you, if a candidate comes in and says, look at my 4 side projects and my, I'm a contributor, I maintain 3 open source projects, they've got 1 million stars on GitHub. If you're competing with that person, how can you be competitive without having to do all those extra things? So I agree with the premise. I think it depends on what actually are your experiences, what are some of the struggles, and really being honest about those struggles, assuming you have struggles with them. And then again, actionable advice on if I'm looking for a job, if I'm trying to advance my career, but I don't have some of these things that other people might have, what can I do to make up for that? Okay, I see another talk on accessibility, which I'm going to skip because I kind of talked about that. So I see another one on drawing with CSS. Same advice. I really like that idea. Anything visual is just fun and beautiful, so I'm totally down with that. Okay. Okay. I want to talk about self-care because as new or experienced tech people, we spend a lot of time sitting. That is true. Sitting is becoming a health crisis. Repetitive, oh God, I got something in my eye. Oh no. Okay, I'm fine. Repetitive stress injuries, joint issues, as well as increased susceptibility to organ... Seriously? Oh God. And other disorders. I want to give attendees an overview of what sitting does. Oh, Jesus Christ. Then counter that with a fun, okay, that's good, lively discussion about what we do to change that. There is a self-quiz to see, oh, that's fun, what our wellness IQ is and how we can all do better and have fun doing it. Okay. I need to ponder on this one a little bit. Okay, so I appreciate the health angle. I'm wondering... okay, so it depends on what the solution is. So if the solution is get a standing desk, then that becomes like I guess I'm probably just going to sit. Because standing desks, one, are kind of expensive. They also are kind of uncomfortable. Your office may not allow a standing desk. So part of my concern with this is what can the audience take away that realistically they have control over and they can change about their situation. So I'm a little bit concerned about the action item of this. I think this is interesting, but so one thing I should tell you, the program this year is going to be shorter. One of the big piece of feedback that I got at the first conference is that people really wanted more time to just talk to each other and to do community and network. So I've blocked off like a crap ton of time to just like open it up and just have like music playing in the background and just, food and people just generally hanging out. So given that we're not going to have as many talks as we did last year, we're going to have, I think the final number is like 19 talks. No, that's a lie. I lied. I think it's like 13 talks. So given that, I really want all the talks to be more technical. I want them to be, I'm a developer and here's like a coding related thing. So I think this is really useful. I think people should know about it. If you want to submit like a blog post, I'd be happy to to retweet that and share that. But I don't think it's coding. It's like tied to coding specifically and directly enough to warrant one of the few slots that we have. Sorry. Okay, next idea. Nope, water. Okay. Okay, next idea. Okay, I burp a lot, by the way, so. I also want to submit a WordPress workshop with this person. She is, I'm trying to like make this kind of anonymous. She is a WordPress developer and volunteer for our local WordPress meetup. We want to give an intro to WordPress workshop on creating child themes because WordPress runs most of the websites on the internet and it's more fun and customizable than most people think. To make local development easier, we'll be using Get Flywheel, easy install, and we'll have exercise files for every attendee so no one goes, I love this idea. I would love to have a WordPress workshop. I think that's really good. It's very actionable. A lot of people, even if they don't end up being WordPress developers, a lot of people start at least on WordPress. It's very accessible. So yeah, I hope you submit. I think that is really, really great. And we can, work through what specifically we want to focus the, what's it called? Like the project on. One of the things is we want to make sure it's small enough that people can actually like finish it. It's very important for people to actually finish the item, the thing on during the workshop, during like the 3 hours that we have. And we also want it to be, we want to give people enough time to get stuck. No matter how easy the install is, somebody's going to have a problem with some machine of something that you've never heard of before. So we want to make sure we have room to get people unstuck and people can, all join in. So yeah, I like that idea. That I don't really have much more feedback on that. I think that was pretty good. Okay, so... Okay, I'm looking at some follow-up question stuff. I think it's been talking about tools, features, and I know about. Build without using. Okay, so I have 10 minutes left. I'm going to prioritize the people who submitted. Sorry, you guys, there's not that many left, and we'll see what we can squeeze in at the end. Hopefully this is helpful to y'all. Let me know, by the way, this is the first time that we've done this, so, tweet me, DM me. My Twitter is just Saranya Bark, or tweet Code Newbies with an S, because Code Newbie was taken. And let me know, like, if this was helpful, what we can do better, blah, 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 all that crap. Okay. More pathetic because. Ooh. Okay, this one reads, I want to talk about a more empathetic way to develop voice skills because voice-first technology is a riveting field. Nice use of the word riveting. And we need to be conscious of the diverse audience we develop the voice skills. I will be presenting a talk on developing skills for Alexa. This can be a workshop too. I don't know what voice skills are. So my first question is like, what are voice skills? Is that, and Rob, if you know the answer to this, feel free to shout it out. I don't know if voice skills means like coding using voice APIs, if it means like voice over. I assume you don't mean voice over work. So I don't really know what exactly this means. It sounds really interesting. I definitely would like to do, so one like category of talks that I hope like naturally comes up in the CFPs is doing something with like not web and mobile, right? So what does it look like for a Google Home, for an Alexa or Dot, whatever those things are called? What does it look like to code for different platforms outside of web and mobile? So given that, I think this would be good, but I just need to know like what voice skills are to give you a better answer. Sorry. Feel free to email me or DM me and I can follow up with you. I want to talk about Go cross platform with native React and Realm.io because a lot of mobile applications are written in Android iOS frameworks, and for applications for both frameworks, double the work has to be done to implement the same feature in both iOS and Android with a single DB best suited for React Native. True. In Workplace, I worked on building a React Native app from scratch, and that brings the best of both worlds and is cross-platform. Okay, so this feels very, very bloggy to me. This feels like, because this is the kind of thing that I'm wondering how valuable it is to talk through. If you wanted to do, and I don't know if this is a good idea, but if you wanted to do like a intro to React workshop, this could be a really good workshop for, it might be, or like a create React Native app from scratch. That actually be a really, really great workshop if you want to submit that. But as far as using okay, a couple things. When you're submitting specifically to Codeland, you have to keep in mind that not everyone in the room knows the same tools, technology, or has the same technical goals. So if I am not interested at all in supporting both platforms, can I still get value from this? It sounds like I probably wouldn't. If I don't like or care to learn any type of JavaScript framework, is this applicable to me? Probably not. So this is the kind of talk that I think works really, really well if I'm sitting at my computer and I'm thinking, I am trying to figure out how to do this double platform thing without being a lot of work. What can I do? Let me search. Bam, I have your blog post. So I think it's a really great blog post. I'm not sure it would make a really great talk. Okay, we got like 7 minutes. I'm gonna skip to the next person. Ooh, this sounds fun or sad. I don't really know. You tell me. I want to talk about quitting because I just quit. I want to say congratulations, but I'm not sure. I put a lot of work into quitting in a good way. Okay, that's good. Good for you. Both for myself and for my employer. That's very thoughtful. I learned a lot as I lived it, and I want to share that. I worked from a quitting timeline and quitting. I don't know who you are, but I just love you so much. I love that you have a timeline and a checklist. Like I have so many checklists. It's ridiculous. And I think people would benefit from seeing that and adapting it to their situation. Quitting is nerve-wracking, unpredictable, validating, exciting. I think it'd be fun to talk about. I love this idea. I love this idea of having a timetable for quitting. Yeah, I definitely hope you submit it. So this is a talk. I totally agree. I think it can be really fun. I think it's going to be super relatable. I think we're going to have a lot of people who are looking to transition into their first role in, as a developer. So I think they're trying to figure out financially, when can I quit? In terms of relationships, when can I quit? In terms of, and that's the other thing too. I think that people hear, oh, there's such a high demand for developers that it's going to take like weeks to get me a job. No, companies will wait because the developers are an expensive hire, they will sit and wait for the right person to come along. So just because it's in demand doesn't necessarily mean it won't take you like months to find a good job, and a good job that is, a good fit for you. So I love this idea of having a very, very actionable here's how to quit. You need a timeline, you need a checklist, you need to inform, you need a quit crew, okay? You need a crew of people who are gonna be your support system as you go through the quitting process. I think it'd be just really funny and entertaining, but also really, really, really informative. This is one of those talks where, especially since you said, like, I put a lot of work into quitting in a good way, I want to know that story. I want to know why you quit, what you were doing, how the employer responded, did you execute that quitting strategy to perfection, or did you have some speed bumps along the way? I think that's a phenomenal talk, and I really hope that you submit. Okay, next one. I want to talk about people shipping their ideas, because far too often we wait for our ideas to be absolutely perfect and miss out on opportunities, especially for minorities and those with imposter syndrome. I think this is fine. I think that shipping ideas, so this to me sounds like, what is product development? What is minimum viable product? What is prototyping? That kind of thing. I think this would be a better workshop than a talk, because again, it's one of those things where I think, and I've seen, oh my God, I've seen so many talks on on how to make an MVP and design thinking and all that crap. And it just, like, it's fine if you've given that talk, no shade, but I don't think that people really get a lot from watching that talk. I think people get a lot from saying, okay, I'm going to take this really crappy idea right now, and I'm going to go through the steps that I need to go through to ship it really fast. Like, I think actually going through it is where any of it makes any real sense. So I agree shipping their ideas is difficult. I would encourage you to reposition it as a workshop rather than a talk. Unless you had like a really interesting, compelling, unique story about how you shipped an idea and all the lessons you learned along the way. If you have something like that, I think that could be a more interesting talk. Okay. Okay, there's one more on like UI stuff, which we talked about a little bit earlier. I think this might be one of the last ones. I want to talk about building your first progressive web app, PWA, because they allow web apps to take advantage of all the positives that a native mobile app offers, like offline support, push notifications, and fast performance. PWAs are Google-backed, steadily becoming mainstream, and allows the web to become even more accessible to everyone, since all their practices allow for the app to function even on slow networks or on devices with limited storage space. I think PWAs would be a great topic to learn for a developer at any stage of their careers, since it promotes many positive web practices and is quickly becoming the next golden web standard. Yeah, I think I agree with your analysis of your own idea. I think that I like this topic because we all need to make some type of a website thing. Even if we're making like a mobile app, we still need to, like, it's hard to avoid some type of web component. So I think that doing a talk on this as like a philosophy, a direction, as a standard, and then going in and showing, okay, here's what it actually looks like. I think that topic, even though it's very, I think it'll be technical, but in a way that I think a lot of people in the audience will connect to, will find interesting. I also like that it has a news angle, right? Because it's not just like, here's how to JavaScript, which has been around forever, forever. But here's something that is coming up. We're going to put you ahead of the curve, keep an eye out, differentiate yourselves in terms of, your next job, your next career by possibly being an expert on this. So I really like this idea. I think this is a really good balance between technical, and I hope you show, like code samples and websites and screenshots and things that make me see, oh, this is what first progressive web apps look like versus other craps. So I like that, but I also feel like most people will appreciate it, and the fact that it's newsy is really awesome. Okay. Okay. I think that is about it. Let me go back to my other thing. Okay, so I'm going to do these last two things. Last two ideas. One says, I was thinking of submitting a talk on developer tools, features in Chrome and Safari that the audience may not know about. I think that could be an interesting demo one. Developer tools, so there are lots of blog posts on developer tools, But I think one thing that's missing, whenever I see a review of a tool, what is missing for me personally is, can I see that tool in action though? Like, can I see you in the middle of your coding session thinking, oh man, I really wish I could do this thing. Oh my, here's a feature for it. So I think this would make I think this can make a good talk. But I think to make this talk really powerful, it should be, don't make it a disconnected set of features. Make it like, let's build this app together. Let's make this website. In the process of naturally making this website, I ran into a problem. What do? Here's a feature. Okay, cool. Did that. Awesome. Now you know about it. Moving on, here's another thing, and here's a problem that I have. Oh, I need a tool. What do? Here it is. So I think like if you frame it in the story of, I'm building this one thing, I'm trying to solve this problem, I keep running into little roadblocks along the way, but here are these developer tools and features to help me along the way. I think that differentiates it from being just a blog post on like top 5 features, because you're taking me on a journey, you're sharing a story with me, and I get to see it like work in real time, in real life. So I think that'd be really powerful. Okay, last one real quick. Core fundamentals of web development: build a web application without using frameworks, libraries, just straight HTML, submitting as workshop and talk. I think this is, I don't think this would, I'm torn about this. First thought, workshop, definitely better than a talk, because I think this is something that is more valuable if I can like sit with it and really look at it and ask you questions and go, but wait a minute, how did you blah, blah, blah. But I thought you could, like, I think that requires, I think it is more impactful as a conversation in a small group than it is a 15-minute talk to 300 people. However, but if you are set on submitting it as a talk, in order for this to work, it would need to be like impressive. So I think there's tons of websites out there, lots of code pads, lots of examples out there that are like, hey, you don't need that fancy framework. Here's how you can do it on your own. So for this to be an interesting talk, an interesting demo, it would be, here's this really complicated, cool, amazing app that looks like it needs all this framework. Guess what? It doesn't. So I think that's like the twist that we would need for this to be an interesting talk versus kind of a regular blog post on it. Yeah, I think that is about it. Crystal's my assistant producer. Crystal, if there's anything that I need to do, you need to let me know now. Otherwise, I'm about to shut this down. Okay, so let me get back to my face with the stuff on it. Okay, so as a friendly reminder, CFP closes November 26th. Go to codelandconf.com for more info and all that. One thing that I will say is you are still welcome to email me your questions, and if you have any issues or anything, you're welcome to email me. You're welcome to DM me. I will do my absolute best to respond to you in a timely manner, but frankly there's a lot going on right now. So I'll do my best. If I don't respond to you, ask other people. You're welcome to tweet it to us and we can retweet it and kind of crowdsource some feedback for you. You're welcome to go to your local meetup and pitch it there. You're welcome to go to work if you are working as a developer now and pitch your idea there. So reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help you. I will do my best to respond to people in a timely manner. But there are also lots of other resources to get feedback on your idea as well. Okay, Codeland CFP closes November 26th, codelandconf.com. That's it for me. Thank you all so much for spending, I don't know how long you actually hung out with me, but thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Hope this was helpful, and you have an awesome rest of your day.